Good afternoon to the citizens of Gauteng. Sindison Tlabati here for the Gauteng Network. I'm here with Mary Filenzeke from the Democratic Alliance, MPL, representing in the Gauteng legislature. Melega, go so just to look at a short brief, why was the legislature here today on your perspective?
The legislature we have something called Taking Parliament to the People. And this is the time of the year when we present annual reports. So we also engage community to find out their own concerns so they can also give input into how they believe the annual report has fared for them. Yeah, and then obviously as committees we also give comment, but we will have more bigger deliberations in the legislature itself in one of the committee rooms.
Now, looking at some of the comments that were made by the public, yes, some of them were around issues that affect local government, but it seems like a lot of the facilities don't have the impact that the budgets have been showing. What is the legislature then trying to take back to legislature to try and change that?
You know, I can only talk about my observation of this particular annual report. Yeah. What is said in the annual report is not reflective of what we see and find on the ground when you talk to NPOs and the work they are doing. I'm sure you will remember when we were talking as committee members, I indicated that it's a very glossy, pretty looking annual report, but the reality is nothing. Yeah. And the truth is the devil is in the detail of that annual report. Yeah. First of all, the year under review, which is 2023-2024, they stopped funding older persons, disability, orphans and vulnerable children, and HIV/AIDS. It was only when I started complaining about why we are moving all the money to poverty alleviation programs when we know that those four areas are also just as important. It took months, me fighting in committee, NPOs fighting, they even staged pickets at the regional office. Later on, they went to picket at the provincial office and actually took the department to court. Yes. Only then did the premier now have to step in, intervene and say, we have to reverse this reprioritization. Then they reprioritize. That's why you see so many targets have been missed in the annual report, because by the time they reversed the reprioritization away from those four mandates, months had passed. Yeah. Which means, again, they release money per tranche, which is every quarter. Certain quarter money were already gone, so they couldn't go allocate money retrospectively. So that's the challenge that came. But even after they reversed the reprioritization, there's this thing called 258 million, which was then unallocated. When we asked questions, they said the 172 NPOs were not compliant either with bylaws or the NPO Act, or whatever act governs. Let's say it's Older Persons Act if it was an old age home. Yeah. And they've never accounted for where that money went. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, you see them returning 558 million back to Treasury. And we know people have suffered, people have gone hungry. I know an incident, which I can't name the area because it will expose the NPO, where two children died because school was closed, and the drop-in center where they would normally go after school and they would do homework and then get fed was closed because they didn't have the money.
Just to close it off, and you just highlighted a lot of my questions, I just want to get like a quick one in terms of, there was a lady who spoke here about the fact that there's a white elephant here in Tembisa. And what is necessarily, maybe if you know, could have caused that for that particular old age home?
There was the old age home at Tembisa was closed down because of a structural deficit. But people are not saying how was that home, how did the builder pass on the building to the municipality, to social development, and they didn't pick up that there was a structural problem. And then they operated it. And then only then, when they were already operating with old our gogos and Bondatemohon, then they picked up that there's a structural change. Only in 2019, having opened it in 2019, that is the elephant in the room. They didn't pay the workers of the old age home. They promised them that they will be retained. And ultimately, they closed in 2019. We're in 2024. Promises have been made. About 3 years ago, MEC Muragani Musupie, who's now the Speaker of the Legislature, promised 500,000 to fix that problem. 3 years ago, we're in 2024. Old age home is still not operating. Remember, When they closed the home, people were sent home, which means if your gogo is frail, you'll stop working to look after her. Then there's a spillover effect because it means the whole household, there's no longer any more money to feed the children. So we want that old age home opened because it will create jobs, but it also frees people from looking after the elderly and go look for work. So, yes.
Manzagi, thank you so much. I think I need an extended conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Because even Pomolong is the same thing. Pomolong Luncheon Club for Elderly. They look after 100 elderly people. It's like a daycare facility. In the morning they go there, they eat breakfast, they eat lunch, they eat supper at 5. And then they go home. They are closing it down, but money has been returned. This is what I call the painful thing that I was talking about, where communities are suffering and money gets taken back. And we can never get back that money once it's gone back.
Thank you so much. It was Mayor Refilwe-Ntseki, MPL for the Gauteng Legislature for the Democratic Alliance. Sindiso Ntlabati for the Gauteng Network.